let's stitch leaf stitch. You'll need 3 strands of thread. Just tie a knot in the end and trim off the excess. So you can see that I've drawn on a small leaf shape onto my hoop. I've just used a water erasable pen for this. It's a good idea to use something that will disappear. So we're going to come up through the very, very tip of the leaf there and just create a small straight stitch. Now, each time you come up now, you're going to follow the shape of the outline of the leaf. So come up just to the right at the top. We're going to create a small diagonal stitch that goes down just underneath where that first straight stitch ended. And then repeat on the other side. If it's helpful, you could draw the line down the middle of the leaf so that you know where you're aiming for. I tend to freestyle it, but that's just personal preference. So what we need to do then is just keep repeating all the way down this little leaf shape. So each time you stitch in the diagonal stitch, you are following the outer edge of that stitch and coming down underneath the previous stitch. Obviously the advantage of using an erasable pen for these is that if there are any visible marks of pen afterwards, you can just either use a brush pen if you're using a water pen, or if you're using a heat pen instead, just use a hairdryer. I don't like to iron over my stitching, so I would always say use a hairdryer instead. Just give it a quick blast. It should just disappear in a few seconds. It is a really beautiful stitch, this one. You should get good coverage. Oops, I keep catching that bit, never mind. It's because I'm filming. Now, as you can see, as we get further down the leaf, what happens between the stitches is that it forms a natural line that looks like an actual leaf. So it's when you do it in lovely greens, natural shades, or in any shade I guess, but it makes it look a bit more realistic. So hence the name leaf stitch. If you wanted to, you could use 6 strands of thread instead, and obviously the coverage would be slightly different. You're using more thread, so it won't take quite as long to stitch it, but I quite like using 3 because I like the way that they sit next to each other. So just always have a hoop that's just got a scrap bit of fabric in that's the same or similar to what you're stitching on, so you get a feel for how the stitches work on it, and just experiment with them really. That's one of the beautiful things about hand embroidery. You can just make it your own, do your own thing, do what works for you. There we go. Now as we get to the point, you'll see that we are just following that shape. You don't need quite as many stitches, and they're going to get a little bit shorter at the end here. I'll just pop one on the other side to finish there. So all I would do now is tie off at the back, get rid of any of those pen lines, and there we have it, leaf stitch.